England was not born in a single moment. It was forged through collapse, invasion, and survival. Britain, an island known for its wide green plains, steep cliffs, and almost never-ending rain. Because of its location, it has remained in constant contact with continental Europe throughout history. And over time, this island became home to one of the most influential political entities the world has ever seen, England. Today, we're going to talk about how England came into existence. To begin this story, we need to go back roughly 2,078 years, to the moment when Julius Caesar first set foot on British soil. The earliest written information we have about Britain begins in 55 BC, when Gaius Julius Caesar launched his expeditions to the island. During these campaigns, Caesar encountered a population culturally similar to the Celtic tribes he had previously fought in Gaul. These people are known today as the Britons. Like many others, they were labeled barbarians by the Romans. Caesar organized two separate expeditions to Britain. While he achieved limited military success, he failed to establish permanent Roman rule on the island. What Caesar could not complete was accomplished decades later by Emperor Claudius, who came to power in the early 40s AD. Under his leadership, Roman campaigns finally secured lasting control, and Britain soon became a province of the Roman Empire. This conquest was not without resistance. Roman forces frequently clashed with Briton uprisings. Despite this, they eventually managed to assert control over most of the island. Once the conquest was complete, an unexpected transformation followed. Many Britons accepted Roman authority and began living peacefully alongside them. Out of this coexistence emerged what historians now call Romano-British culture. As part of the Roman world, the Britons were introduced to Christianity. This religious transformation unfolded slowly, both in Britain and across the empire as a whole, reaching a more settled form by the mid-4th century, around AD 350. But this period of relative stability would not last. The Roman Empire was coming under increasing pressure, particularly in Western Europe. Germanic tribes were crossing imperial borders, raiding cities and destabilizing entire regions. Rome was no longer the power it once had. Its vast borders had become increasingly difficult to defend, and distant provinces were turning into liabilities. As a result, the empire began seriously considering withdrawal from some regions. Britain was among them. By the late 4th century, starting in the 370s, Roman troops began withdrawing from Britain in stages. By the year 410, Roman military presence on the island had effectively disappeared. Rome's departure marked a major turning point for Britain. A society shaped over centuries by Roman influence suddenly found itself cut off from continental Europe. The island became more isolated, more fragmented, and far more uncertain. The Britons remained Christian, but in daily life, politics, and social organization, they gradually reverted towards pre-Roman patterns. Britain entered a period that would later be remembered as a Dark Age. The reason this era remained so obscure is simple. Unlike the Romans, the Britons did not keep systematic historical records. Much of what we know today comes from texts written later. Among the most important sources are the works of Gildas and the monk Bede, whose writings provide rare insight into this turbulent time. After the Roman withdrawal, the peoples of Britain organized themselves into small tribal communities, dividing land among local leaders. Yet the development that would truly reshape the island occurred during this fragile period. Groups known as the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes originating from northern Germany, began migrating to Britain in large numbers. These movements intensified notably after the year 449. Historians still debate the reasons. Some point to famine and population pressure, while others suggest that Britain leaders invited these groups as mercenaries. Whatever the cause, the outcome was clear. The Anglo-Saxon groups rapidly seized control of much of the island. The Britons were pushed westward, retreating into what is now Wales. The Jutes settled in Kent and the Isle of Wight. The Saxons established kingdoms in the south, including Wessex, Sussex, and Essex. The Angles moved into the central and northern regions, forming Mercia and Northumbria. This transformation was not only cultural, but conceptual. The island as a whole was still called Britain, but the southern and central regions increasingly became known as Angleland, a name that would eventually evolve into England. In the early years, there was little structure. Kingdoms formed through warfare and territorial control. Over time, a system based on land distribution emerged. Tribal leaders became kings, their supporters became lords, and a feudal order slowly took shape. This new political landscape attracted attention from continental Europe. In 595, Pope Gregory the Great sent Augustine to Britain. His initial efforts failed, but on a second attempt, King Athelbert of Kent converted to Christianity. Within the next century, the remaining Anglo-Saxon kingdoms followed. A shared religion paved the way for a shared political vision. By the 7th century, the Kingdom of Mercia rose to prominence. Yet this fragile unity did not endure. A new threat was approaching from the north, the Vikings. The first Viking appearance was recorded in 789, followed by the infamous raid on a monastery in 793. In the years that followed, the Vikings came not only to raid, but to settle. Amid this chaos, only one major power managed to survive, the Kingdom of Wessex. And at its head stood a man who would change the course of history, King Alfred. Alfred was never formally crowned King of England, yet he was the true architect of the idea. Rather than fighting the Vikings endlessly, he sought to integrate them into a stable system. Through a policy known as Danegeld, Alfred attempted to secure peace through negotiation and compromise. In 1878, Alfred suffered a devastating defeat. He was forced into hiding, and rumors of his death spread across the land. But Alfred survived. Later that same year, he returned and defeated the Viking forces at the Battle of Edington. Instead of executing the Viking leader, Guthrum Alfred chose to spare him and encouraged his conversion to Christianity. This decision would have long-term consequences for unity and stability. When Alfred died in 1899, he left behind a kingdom on the brink of unification. His son Edward, his daughter Aethelflaed, and his grandson Athelstan carried this vision forward. In 1925, when Aethelstan was crowned King of all the English, the Kingdom of England was finally born. Alfred's vision had become reality, but the story of England was only just beginning.